Welcome everyone to the Aeos Clubhouse. This is Aeos Clubhouse number 4, and I'm gonna say the date because we're coming up quick in just like years time on mobile release. So you all know, if you go back in time, when is it? Where are we? It's August 10th. And this is episode number 4. I'm not alone as always. I'm joined by fabulous co-hosts from the Pokémon UNITE sphere. First up, let's welcome Mockery. How you doing, Mockery?
Hello, I'm doing very, very well. I just hit Master and ranked last night for Pokemon Unite. So,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. I'm feeling very good coming into this. You know, we're riding high for right now.
And welcome to you, Kaiberries.
Hello. I'm not Master, but still feeling great. Weebab veteran, but I've had some fun games lately, so happy to be here.
Veterans, I mean that's past expert. I am on the edge of great, or I'm on the edge of expert right now. I'm learning.
In our other MOBA terms, I think veteran would be platinum, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'll take it for now.
Not bad.
For now.
Not bad
for
at
now.
all.
She will not be satisfied for long.
No.
I'm just curious to dive right into it, Mockery. How was the journey?
It was surprisingly good. So I remember, like, right at the start, I tried to solo queue, and that was just absolutely dreadful. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. AFKs nearly every single game. But then after that point, I started to at least duo with a friend of mine who I knew played a different role. That was one of my mods, Omega. And, you know, having someone who I knew consistently wouldn't really compete with me in roles, and at least we've got a duo, so it's not like a totally solo experience. I've got some coordination. After that point, it felt really good, and I won something like 4 or 5 straight to get into Master Red at the end. So it was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
So not an unknown storyline for MOBAs or any sort of multiplayer game in general?
Oh yeah, you know, it's dangerous to go alone. All right, take a friend with you. It was certainly something, and really, I'm not even gonna lie, most of the reason that I wanted Master was those sweet, sweet tickets at the end of the season.
Why not? I mean, we don't even know what like the reset's gonna look like yet. If it's gonna be more Hearthstone card game style, where it's like everybody back in the pile, down to the bottom, go, and now do it again. Or if it's going to be more of a MMR, we move you down slightly so you can enjoy the
like
climb
a soft
again.
reset versus a hard reset. Yeah. Who knows how that's even going to look? I have no clue whatsoever, but I do know that once you get Master, you can't lose it, at least during that season. So I'm in it for the rest of the season. I will never not be Master for the rest of the season, and I'm getting my 20K tickets.
Nice.
And that's one thing that I really, really like about the current system, is the end of season rank rewards are given based on highest ranked achieved, which I think I mentioned before, but I'm not 100% sure about. So, like, as soon as you hit a certain rank, even if it's not Master, there's, like, zero anxiety about losing it because, hey, you got those rewards at the end of the season. You're good. You're chilling. It's a good system.
Kai, how's your week been in the stadium?
Okay, pretty good. I'm just my computer is like my phone, cursed right now, so I'm trying to figure that out. But the week has been pretty good. I have found a lot of success in solo queue if I play really early in the morning. So I started talking about this before we started recording, and then I pulled it back so we could have it on the recording. So I really like how the games are only 10 minutes. So when I'm working in the morning, if I have like a 10-minute break or a lunch, or there's like a pause while stuff's getting set up, I sneak in a game. And like I played the other day and I went 9-1.
That's 90%.
That's a lot of games, right? That's 10 games. So that's a lot of games over the course of like a 9-hour like shift. I was like sneaking them in there, here and there, but they were all in the morning. They were all before like 2 p.m. Right?
What were we playing on this run, Kai?
Only Eldegoss. I didn't play anything else. I didn't even
in the puff.
Which is what I normally do. Like every once in a while, if somebody else wants to play her, I'll play Pikachu or Ninetales or something. But my games are like majority Eldegoss. But yeah, if I play early in the morning, I've found the games are super good. They were all like close and like competitive too, but also wins. And then when I play at night, I look at like when I play on my stream and I play at night, I feel like I look at more of like a 50% win rate. It's like 50-50, just some are good, some are bad, some are stomps, some are also stomps, but in the other direction. Like, it's far less like I climb so much more when I'm playing in the morning, which is weird because as far as I know, the game's global servers, right? You don't. It's
To
based
be
on.
honest, I don't even know. I assume it tries to group people that are like close to each other. But
I think it tries to group based on ping, but if you look at your friends list, I have friends in Australia that I see on my friends list. I have friends in South America I see on my friends list. European pals I see on my friends list that I could just queue up with at any time. So I assume it attempts to make lobbies based on ping because that's what other games I play that have global lobbies do. But if there's not enough people, it'll start expanding those parameters.
gotcha.
So you that's how you end up playing in lobbies with people, like all Russians if you're playing in the middle of the night. So when I'm playing in the morning, I don't know who I'm playing with, but those games have been just like really good. I don't know.
Interesting.
I think it's interesting too. I don't like if it was say Here's the Storm, I would know it's you know exactly who you're playing with, but with Pokemon Unite, I don't actually know who I'm getting grouped with. It could be anybody.
Yeah, the question of how regions are handled, that's always so interesting to me in a MOBA because it's so different from game to game, right? And we come from Heroes of the Storm where you go to a different region and you effectively have a different account for almost all intents and purposes. It's just a separate account. And I know that all too well as I've been climbing in my European ladder. But like every game handles it a little bit differently. I know League of Legends, you can pay a small fee and then you can move all your stuff to another region. And Dota just lets you queue wherever you want. I could go and queue for like the Korea or China servers right now in Dota if I wanted. So that's interesting to me that Pokemon Unite, just based off what you're telling me right now, definitely leans on, very liberally sort of just letting you party up, not really region locking you. But it does sound like if you'd want to play in another region's ladder, you'd almost need to use a VPN if it's all automatic. Like that's my first thought is you might have to do some steps external to the game to actually make it to another region.
And that can be really.
Yeah, I don't know how they're broken up, and I don't know if they'll tell us. But I see people. I know where Kid Kerrigan is. I know she's in Australia, and like there she is on my friends list, and we could group up. And Australia is usually part of like Oceanic servers, right? So.
Of course, yeah.
Huh. I haven't noticed those sort of patterns yet, or a time of day pattern. Mainly, it's whether or not there's a fellow jungler is my greatest impact on my game as a Gengar.
Oh man, I had a game last night where it was me and 4 junglers. It was seriously, it was Cinderace, Gengar, Zeraora, and Absol. And I was like, what are we doing, guy? We did not win. We did not win. But
as someone who played jungle almost exclusively to master, I always loved that like shuffle at the start where it's like, oh, who's going where? Are you gonna take my jungle? Do I need to go to a side lane? Are you gonna go to a side lane? Are you gonna go in there? And it's like we're both sort of vying for dominance and control over the jungle.
My favorite is in the draft when they all mark jungle too. Like they're ready to fight about it. They're like, no, I'm jungling. No, I'm jungling.
My favorite, I got into a war like that with one of my fellow players because we both would open up the quick chat and just keep sending a message that said we're gonna go mid lane. So like I was like, minus button, I'll go to the central path, and then we're both just like spamming it at each other, trying to convince the other person to swap off. And at the last second, I did swap off because I guess I'm just more accommodating than some people.
Wait. Speaking of your communication tactics, I saw that you got a message this week that one of your reports had been denied or ignored, or you weren't a bad person. Congratulations.
I got like a warning that's like, hey, make sure that you're always using voice chat right and keeping this community a safe and respectful place for everyone. And I was like, boy, I've never even touched voice chat. I don't know the binding to do it. I have no microphone hooked up to my Switch. It is impossible for me to use the voice chat in this game. that this game apparently has that I've never heard a single person
yeah.
use.
Boy,
Yeah.
same. I got the same warning, and I have a step further. I've never pinged. I've never pinged in a game with humans. I practiced it a couple times in CPU games, and I was like, the pings are too cumbersome. I'm just never going to ping. I'm Eldegoss. I have nothing important to say anyway. I have never pinged in a game with humans. I don't have voice chat on, and I got the same warning, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Weird.
I've never used it, never heard it. I will say I like pings. I use them for pretty much one purpose, and it's like while I'm rotating to a boss, I'll be like, "Hey, let's go get Dreadnought" or something like that.
You know who pings like absolute ballers? The bots.
Who?
If you get a bot game, I got a bot game last night after some losses. The bots ping all the time and actual useful stuff. So I know it's a bot game, so I'm going kind of hard because what are they going to do? They're bots. So I'm like pushing at their score zone 2v1 because they're bots and it's fine. And then my bot jungler pings like retreat. And 2 more people were rotating in. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That was so useful. Thank you, bot. Like, and they did that throughout the game. They pinged like danger pings. They pinged like on Dreadnought, like you're saying. Like they were pinging like they were real people and actually giving like useful, actionable information. Like they pinged better than any player I have ever seen. But they're the bots.
I don't know. You say
wild.
they're ping better than any player you've ever seen, but I've had a handful of players that walk in, try to turn in 4 points at the start of the game and die, and then give us 5 consecutive "I need backup" pings. And that's probably the pinnacle of teamwork and communication in the modern era. I strive to be like these players one day, personally.
Okay. All right. I'm in a different world where like the jungle's still being figured out and that it even exists. And if there is a fellow jungler, my current strategy is I just gotta wait 2 minutes till they're bored and it'll all be mine. Like they do the initial rotation and then they're like, and it's ARAM time. I'm gonna go fight forever. And you're, oh, excellent. Allow me now to haunt her on in there and do it for the rest of time.
Dude, speaking of fighting forever, I had a game that I played off stream, but it was on Kyberry's stream and Haloran's stream. One of my favorite casters joined us for that.
We had a legendary 5-stack last night.
Yeah, and we fought on Dreadnought for
Oh my
5 straight minutes. And put it in perspective.
I clipped out this game. Maybe I should put it on the Aeos channel instead of mine, so the viewers can see this game.
So to put it in perspective, Dreadnought is only on the map for 5 minutes, okay? Dreadnought spawns at 7 minutes and despawns at 2 minutes. And both teams just like slapped each other around and kept super jumping back into the fight until Zapdos spawned. we did like Dreadnought died a little bit before Zapdos spawned, and we just kept going.
Yeah, nobody left. Then too. Dreadnought went down, and we all just stayed there. Like there was something to do. It was the funniest game.
Absolutely wonderful.
I do wonder how much of that tilt is non-MOBA players, because the exponential tilt of an hour and a half League Dota game, as they previously were known, maybe now 40 minutes in a lot of those cases, it was so much more tilt. I get to the end, and right now I'm like really curious to see who has a score shield, because I just want to know not necessarily like what the top end is running, but what's the popularity of some items.
Haloran was running the score shield last night and was getting some actually really cool value out of it.
So Haloran gives you a score shield gives you a percentage-based shield on yourself that stops people from interrupting your turn-ins. And one thing I think is actually really cool is I believe it also makes you unstoppable while turning in. So I don't even think you can be CC'd at a turning in.
Yeah, he got some turn-ins where we were like, oh, we need a turn-in, and he's like, I got this score shield. Let me go. That score shield value. It came up a couple times in games where he was getting turn-ins that normally we wouldn't be able to do because of the score shield.
Absolutely, and it's based on a max percentage of your health. So Haloran, he likes to play as tanks, and so you've got this massive shield on a tank. And I think that's where score shield is probably, if it's pickable, is probably pickable more on the tank side of things. And I think the squishier you are, the smaller that shield's going to be, the less risky you can play for those turn-ins. But I do like the idea of just being able to turn in and dump your points whenever you need to. And even just as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, as a tank, if you can dump your points, that means that you're free to do more tank type of duties. You know what I mean? You can play utility. You can play to sacrifice yourself and zone enemies off of a boss that your teammates are getting without fear of losing your points. You know, you've already turned them in. And so that for me, I know is really huge. Like Snorlax, in how I've been running him in my teams, in how we've been shot calling him, has largely been about securing bosses by zoning out the enemy team. And I think a score shield could potentially be a part of that. And it's the same thing with Crustle. Crustle's got similar capabilities. A score shield could be a part of allowing them to secure boss control without fear of losing their points. So I think it's a really interesting idea in general. It's just the hard thing about it is you've only got 3 item slots. But if you can fit it in, I have seen it do some work.
Well, and my curiosity there is one, like my bolt, my auto attack, whatever it may have been, flew through the air. Did I get score shielded out of that interrupt, or did I miss? And I want to know players' items on the enemy side when the game is over, which led to me clicking on their profile, seeing this wealth of ways to like report them or call them bad people. I'm like, how do you be a bad person in this game? And leading to our earlier conversation. But when it comes to the score shield, I'm also a little nervous to invest in it because I don't know if I should then go crazy and stack like the special attack specs on top of it. Because if I'm scoring more, and I farm the jungle, and then I have a bunch of points and I want to still get to level 7, so I keep farming, but I can't pick up the stuff. So I'm like, maybe I need to like run in there with a score shield and get those off me easier and then go back. But maybe then I need attack specs, and before I know it, I've used all 3 items.
Yeah, and then none of your items do anything until you score, you know?
Right.
So, and the hard part about that also that I've found is that attack damage has such a wealth of items, personally for attack damage dealers as a Cinderace main, is that I think about it and I'm like, I've got a scope lens, I've got a muscle band, and I've got a float stone, which gives attack damage as a secondary stat, which to me is still bonkers, by the way. The fact that Floatstone is secretly an attack damage item. And so I'm not giving up any of those items for a score shield, maybe on a tank, but
I kind of get it being an attack damage item because you'd want it on a jungler because they're the one moving around the most, right? So having bonus damage on there when it's the people who, I don't know, it kind of feels like it makes sense to me. It feels like it flows.
Okay, I can see it. And just I don't want to lose any of those items. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not giving up a single one of those items for any of those things. Maybe an attack weight, the item that gives you attack whenever you turn in. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately. I think that items that magnify the impact of turning in or work well off of turning in on the enemy team are going to scale in effectiveness relative to your rank within that game. So I think if I know that I'm going to be one of the better players in the lobby, then I might be more inclined to take an attack weight because I'm more likely to have opportunities to turn in if I'm going to be one of the better players in that game. And so, yeah, and so you might be like, well, Mockery, how can you tell whether or not you're one of the better players in the game? The answer is based on who you queue with. If you're queuing consistently with players lower ranked than you, well, then you're gonna be on the top end of the rank in that game. If you're in a stack with players that are lower ranked than you, you can consistently count on being one of the highest rated players in there, and then I think you might start to get really good, strong value out of these items that scale off of turn-ins, including the score shield. I don't know.
I have another perspective from the Eldegoss healer perspective. I don't favor score items because I am almost never scoring because I very rarely have the energy to score in the first place. Especially in the early game, you want your carry to be getting all of the last hits, so they're collecting all of the... We talked about this last night. What do you call them? I call them energy. Mockery calls them points. Whatever you call the yellow, the gloobs, the globs, the yellow.
I believe
energy.
It's Aeos energy. Aeos energy.
You don't say that full thing every time. You're not like, hold on, guys, I gotta go deposit 24 Aeos energy.
Oh, go a little zombie apocalypse on it then. We gotta get some AE in there, you know? Like,
well, that stuff you get when you are the one who last hits the wild Pokemon, right? Or people drop them when you knock out an enemy Pokemon, an enemy player, they drop their energy and you can pick it up. that's not me, right? I'm not getting the last hits on mobs. I shouldn't be getting the last hits on mobs, and I'm not up in the front getting kills. So I very rarely turn in. Like, if I have a bunch of energy, it's because everybody else is capped, and I'm just like picking up their leftovers off the ground. I'm like a little snuffling on the ground for the sprats. So I don't turn in very much. So I don't feel like I would get a lot of value out of the turn in.
It's also hard as the squishy
Yeah, to step up to be there in the fight. Yeah, I don't want to be there. I'm in the back somewhere else. I'm throwing spores on people. Don't look at me. I don't want to be seen. Like,
yeah, I'm sitting in the back at max cotton guard range. You know, that's what I'm doing. I'm not walking up there unless it's the coast is totally clear. Then I'm going for it.
So
yeah, exactly.
Do you find that kind of range allows you to do the same thing on Cinderace then? Because you're just so far back that unless you've knocked out everybody, you're not going to go in then.
Yeah, that tends to be, you know, usually as the range, I'm oftentimes like either, well, it kind of depends on who's with you, right? Like if I'm with a Snorlax or a Slowbro, they can just hold the other guy in place or push them away while I turn in. You know, that's super easy zoning for the turn in. On the other side, maybe I'm next to an Eldegoss and maybe I'm the one, you know, it really just depends. It's a super contextual question that doesn't have like one set answer. To the point where it's like hard to even answer at a general level like that. You know what I mean? Like it super depends on who's right next to you. What do your ults look like? How many points do you have? Because a lot of times you actually want to specifically set your turn-ins in a certain order. Like say for example, we're at a turn-in that's got 25 points left, and I'm holding 50 points or balls or whatever you want to call them, and one of my allies is holding 24 points. It is in our best interest as a team for them to get their 24 points in and leave that goal zone at 1 point, and then I dunk my 50. That is
because you can overturn in.
Yeah, it overflows and it allows you to do that. And I was actually talking about this with my friend. I realized the other day, I was like, you can get a tier 1 turn in. You can fit 179 points into that bad boy, because you could turn in 79 points, get it down to 1. And then in the late game, when you've got 50, and in the last 2 minutes that doubles to 100, you can sneak in that 100 when there's just 1 point left. So that's the theoretical maximum that you can fit into a goal zone. And so, like, just based on the natural order of who's going to put what in the goal zone, based on how many points we have and who am I standing next to at any time, there's no real answer in that as Cinderace, in my opinion, that's going to cover all scenarios. But yeah, like as Eldegoss, I'm definitely playing back until I know it's clear.
Oh, okay. Well, this is highly informative, and I feel better about my complete conundrum on Gengar being very short range. My main sort of damage abilities take me in, whatever they may be, whether I'm eating dreams or if I'm hexing. And I just don't really know if when I'm jungling and I've got 30 on me, what's worth going and turning in. And I guess I could score shield that. But as you mentioned, you know, I'm not a tank, so the conundrum continues.
Yeah, do you want to be missing out on a damage item? I feel like as a jungler, I want to clear the jungle as fast as possible, and I want to be out there knocking Pokemon out. You know, like it's really, the more I think about it, it's starting to feel more like a tank item, but I would want to take a look at the perspectives of some other players. I've actually consumed very little of other people's content. I haven't watched anyone's stream nor anyone's video in the path to making it to master. So for all I know, I could be missing out on some major perspective right here. And now that I got up to that rank, like I want to just see, you know, what is everybody else saying about all this? Because a lot of this has been me using like my MOBA knowledge and me talking with you guys here on the show. But like I want to see, you know, I want to connect with the greater community, see what I can find out there. Because I have no idea. I'm just guessing right now.
To be fair, though, you are adding a unique perspective instead of parroting what other people. So that's valuable for this show, and thank you for doing so.
Well, thank you.
There's a question in chat that I think is really interesting as we kind of talk about the rhythm and whatnot. What is the latest that you use an ult if you want it for Zapdos?
330. At least for
nice.
Eldegoss. 330. You can't, if you use it after 330, when Eldegoss is gonna, or Zapdos is gonna spawn at 2, you won't have it back.
See, I
assume everyone has the same charge rate. I don't know.
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I think I had a game a while ago where I popped an ult at like 250, And I was like, oh, I was Cramorant, you know, and I just want to shred people, you know, I want to pew, 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 shoot some fish. And I felt kind of bad about it because I was like, even if we wipe them, they're all going to come back and we're going to be on Zapdos again. But the thing is, I feel like a lot of Zapdos fights don't immediately happen at 2 minutes. You know what I mean?
That's
Like, it
true.
still ended up being okay because a lot of Zapdos I found in my games has been like posture, 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 posture. Where both everybody's rotating into the pit and we're all getting around the pit and we're all getting ready for the fight. And 1:30 has gone by and now it's down to 1 minute left in the game. And now there's a Zapdos fight. And then, you know, we're struggling to get in the Zapdos, or maybe we don't even have time for Zapdos and we all just turn in after. I think that as play starts to get more disciplined and rotations start to get more crisp on the ladder, because that's something I've even noticed is that it used to go from a sort of like random fiesta free-for-all in my games down to like, oh, everyone is going to Dreadnought on spawn. It's a 5-on-5 on Dreadnought at 7 minutes nearly every time in Master is my experience now. It wouldn't surprise me if as the rotations get more crisp, you need to have that ult ready right at 2 minutes. But in my experience, there have been a couple times where I ulted a little bit before it spawned. Like I'm talking around the 3 minute mark, maybe a little bit even later than that, maybe around the 250 mark, and I still turned out okay. But like I said, there might be a growth to that in the future. So who knows?
Okay, I actually got some data here off the internet, and there are different charge times for each Pokemon, though a lot of them are 134 seconds, so right around that 2 minute mark. And that's exactly what Eldegoss has. The largest one I'm seeing right now is Greninja, actually, at 164. Turning in any amount gives you a 10% charge.
Oh.
Ooh, okay.
So a little more score shield thing there. Like, oh, okay,
So,
I'm going to dump some random 2, 2, 4, 2, and just like charge up for Zapdos.
That actually gives me a thought. So there have been times where I'm going in to turn in at an enemy goal zone, and there are a couple points on the ground next to me. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I should pick those up before I turn in. But now I'm thinking to myself, well, I should probably turn in and leave those points on the ground intentionally. So if I have the time to do this, pick up those points and then turn in again, boom, get another 10%. And then as far as I'm aware, turning in also gives you a heal that I believe increases as you go in. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I believe increases as you go deeper into enemy territory. And so we were talking with chat, we were talking with Haloran about it last night, and they believed that the heal amount was flat, that it did not scale based on how many points you turn in. So given that you heal off of turn-ins and you get ult charge based off what you just said, that seems to heavily indicate that when possible, you would want to do that extra turn in, you know, turn in, pick up those points, and then turn in again and sort of double dip on those boosts. That seems like a good move when you can get away with it.
Oh my goodness.
Bunches of little turn-ins seem easier than one big turn-in anyway, because the cast time gets longer and longer the more points you're holding. And when you're holding few points, they can't actually interrupt you because you turn in so fast. You can do it between auto attacks and it's impossible to interrupt. So if you're turning in like 5 at a time, they can't stop you. But if you're trying to turn in 30, it's really easy to interrupt that, if you can engineer that situation to happen.
50 just takes
forever. Yeah, 50
ridiculous amount of time.
I've got 2 more questions before I let go of the show and we can go to news. The buddy barrier was everywhere this week. Did you guys experience that?
I'm a buddy barrier enthusiast right here. I run buddy barrier on Eldegoss.
I think Buddy Barrier has a lot of potential to be really good. I am kind of interested in trying it out on Cramorant in particular. Again, I always talk about Cramorant. You know, it's a big focus on the ult for me. And Cramorant gives the enemy team 2 options when you ult. You either, and keep in mind, just for anybody who's like, what's Cramorant ult? You know, just listening to the show. That is, you just park, you sit still, and in a huge circle around you, you just spit fish at the closest enemy player. And these fish actually bounce to nearby enemies as well, if I remember correctly. And so your enemy basically has 2 options, because this thing hits like a truck. They either have to get out of this gigantic radius, or they have to kill you. Knock you out. Sorry, it's a Pokemon game. They have to knock you out instead. And The buddy barrier does a lot to take away one of those two options.
Oh, interesting.
So I think that can actually reduce the amount of counterplay that the enemy has, specifically to Cramorant ult when you're turret moding there. And now at that point, it's either a lot harder to knock you out or they just got to leave. And that's hard because that radius is like 7 miles long. It's huge.
When the Pokemon uses the Unite move, that Pokemon and the nearby allied Pokemon.
It's one ally.
Yes.
It's the lowest HP ally in the radius of, it's like a circle.
So 20%
we'll
max health.
I do want to point out some stuff that I'm finding really interesting. So I'm reading through that Reddit thread that you mentioned a second ago that listed everybody's charge times. And one thing that I'm seeing in here that I think is super important to point out is that people are saying, based on their testing, and we have multiple people corroborating this, Energy Amplifier does not speed up your ult charge rate at all. People are testing with and without Energy Amp and getting no difference whatsoever on their charge rates. And I believe that is listed as one of the effects right here. I also want to say that we do have these amounts of times that are listed. Like, for example, I'm going through, I'm seeing Charizard takes 100 seconds to regain their ult, Machamp takes 134, all that. But you do get your ult faster by farming the jungle, probably just by hitting stuff in general. I don't know exactly how that works, but those are two very important pieces of information. Energy Amplifier seemingly not increasing ult charge rate at all, and you can speed up these timers by farming.
Interesting. Yeah, this is a complex game, you know that?
That's
there's
the thing with MOBAs.
There's another one I get asked. I run Shell Bell, right? And one of Shell Bell's boosts is your move cooldown reduction. And people are like, yeah, but what move does it reduce the cooldown on? All of them? Only some of them? Your Unite move? I have no idea. It's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an enigma. I have no idea. What's up, Kyle?
Speaking of upgrading items, am I missing the Costco section here? Because I go to buy the enhancers and I can do 50 at a time. Is this correct, or am I in the wrong shop?
I mean, that's how I do it, but I will say I accidentally spent a few gems this exact way.
If you don't have enough, it'll be like, hey, you want to slide some gems in there? And if you're not paying attention, it'll just take. Yeah, I almost did the same thing.
So I had enough gems. I want to say I had enough tickets for like 35 enhancers, and I tried to do 50 to see if it would just be like, we're only gonna buy 35 because that's all you can afford. And instead it was like, let's supplement the rest with gems, and then I lost like 25 gems. So that is something to be aware of there. I do think that there's like a little warning box that pops up, but like
you're in the zone.
You're just sitting there clicking, you know what I mean? You're just pressing A, like, come on, buy the thing already. And so that is my fault, but I do want to share that word of warning.
Sure.
So that no one else also unintentionally spends their gems on this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I also buy them 50 at a time, though. It feels more satisfying. Yeah. I don't think there's a meta for that, but it just feels better on the inside.
I was just so looking forward to the end of the season, 20,000 tickets, and I can just go,
oh my gosh, yeah.
50, give me another 50, give me another 50, keep bringing them on, come on, and just grab as many as I can.
I guess that makes sense with the gem thing included. You might not want to crank to the
Be
moon.
aware of how many you have.
Right,
watch your resources when you start to get low.
Yeah. So maybe we won't see a number above 50. I was just trying to get that final 80 to fill out to 20 for my Shell Bell. And was sitting there going, well, actually, I'm going to buy. Yeah, I mixed up the tickets. It said 10 and I got 1. And I'm like, wait, I put 8. I put 8 in there. I got 8. What happened? The shops. So let's head into the news a little bit this week. And first up, we did get a big old post on the Reddit by, let me actually grab the name here because this was just a work of passion and art. Because they went into the try mode and tried everything. This was by Phantom Baselard. Put a lot of work into the game to make official, unofficial patch notes that had all the numbers in them. And
was that lard?
Yes, lard.
That's actually one of my favorite words in the English language.
Lard?
Yeah.
Just mockery trivia for you. I just find the word lard excessively funny.
Very enjoyable.
And I don't know why.
Great.
But please carry on.
No, but everyone has words they hate. I'm glad you've gone opposite and said these are the words I really, really like.
Okay. Lard's just funny.
Very
I don't know
positive.
why.
I like that outlook.
let's continue.
What I was really curious about here, rather than going through all the patch notes again, because you can check out this link, it's in our show notes, it's tagged under the episode there. If you're using a podcast player, you can also find them over at kyleferguson.com. A lot of these numbers are very, very big, such as Talonflame's Acrobatics had a 66.8% increase to its level 1 value.
Nuts.
Who needs round numbers? Not us, not here.
No, and that's another note. Like, particularly coming from the more Blizzard sphere of games, they really like 5 and point nothing. It's just a whole number. We're not seeing that here with Pokemon Unite. They are willing to do a 17.1% decrease on Blaze Kick.
And I'm like, did that 0.1% change much?
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, right? Like, are they using more advanced maths? Is it our traditional system? I think it's called. We're not using metric here in America, so we're missing out on all these beautiful point ones that could better balance our games. What does Tencent and Pokemon know that we don't?
I will say, I believe I saw this same post that had the specific numbers of all the patch changes on each ability, and they have a very interesting formula with how they calculate their damage dealt. And I remember, I believe all of the numbers of damage dealt are floored. And so flooring is a type of rounding where rather than rounding, if your decimal's 0.5 or higher, you go up. If it's, anything lower than 0.5, you go down. Flooring, you just always go down. And so all the numbers in Pokemon Unite are floored along with some other stuff. And I think that might have an impact on how these numbers are calculated. I don't know. Like, I'd really have to look into the coding of it more as someone who, because this is an area of interest for me. I went to school for computer science, and so I would really love to dig deeper into the math and coding of this game. But I do think that there is some funky math and coding that's going into this that could be teased out a little more and could be analyzed a little closer to explain some of these numbers that seem really strange at first.
Of the small sort of numbers, I mean, there were some adjustments that were more in the 11% range, kind of 10% range. Some of these were pretty tame, but overall, rather than going deep into these numbers particular and sticking to what we covered last time, which is an increase and that mystery there, what did you feel this week? To both of you, what was the overall feeling that you got from the balance?
Well, I play a character that got nerfed, right? Because I play Eldegoss. But I didn't feel it at all. Like, I still feel very similar. Feel just as strong being the only person who can bring healing, or the only Pokemon that can bring healing in the game. And it just wasn't super noticeable to me. The biggest thing was the reduction on healing on the Unite move on Cotton Cloud Crash. I can see that, like, whereas before I would completely fully heal my team, now maybe some of them are still missing a little bit of HP, but it still feels very impactful, and overall it's fine.
Yeah, that was a 20% decrease in the Cotton Cloud Crash healing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happened, and like I can see it, especially on higher health Pokemon, like on like a Crustle or a Snorlax, whereas before I would have healed them to full. Now they'll definitely be missing some HP, but that's fair, right? It's kind of crazy to be able to full heal your entire team at once, so it seems fair, and it didn't really like hurt the character that much. It's fine.
Mocker, you were hit with 10% decreases. Looks like mostly they just went after Cinderace at a 10% level. Did you feel it?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Kyberries. Those are substantial nerfs, both to Cinderace and Eldegoss, and I still feel like they're both great characters. I still feel like there isn't really a good substitute for having a lot of healing for your team with Eldegoss. And I really think Eldegoss is the only support in this game. I think Wigglytuff is pretty much a tank. The other one, Mr. Mime, is some other DPS or all-rounder focused thing. Sorry if you can hear Bailey borking away in the background. And then with the same thing with Cinderace, they nerfed a lot of your abilities by about 10-12%. They took about 1/10 of a second off of feint. This character's still baller, all right? I still won several games in a row to get into Master. I'm still farming the jungle. I'm still getting good ganks. And they buffed Pyro Ball by like 4%. I'm still not picking that garbage. It is an arguable downgrade from Ember. You go from Ember, which is a point-and-click ability, to Pyro Ball, which is a skill shot that can miss. It is literally worse than the starter. It feels like Pikachu with the Electro Web that you don't want to give up at the start of the game. It feels like the same situation. But Cinderace still balling, even with like minus 10% damage. I don't really care. I'm still picking it. I was scared at first. I'm still picking it, and I'm still having a lot of success. So I'm unbothered, to be honest.
I did find that I was making a choice on Gengar now to Shadow Ball. And basically that if the enemy team is too CC heavy or doesn't really have any supports that I can kind of cut off and farm like a mighty lion, picking off the herd, that Hex wasn't going to do it anymore. It wasn't enough damage to warrant my sacrifice of going in there and getting knocked out, no matter how deep I went for it. So I've actually been really enjoying kind of the Shadow Ball Dream Eater thing, and I feel like both are pretty even now. There was that bug. There was that bug they knew. They got rid of it pretty quickly, I think by Friday, and I got right back to the Gengar. When it comes to like filling out the roster, feeling like there were more Pokemon participating, Talonflame suddenly felt like a contender this week.
He's so good.
Talonflame hits so hard, dude. Those damage increases were massive, and I want to say the big thing I've been noticing about Talonflame is that ability that's kind of like a falling sword. You're up in the air, you've got that circle that you can just fall down and just smack something on the ground with.
Shadow.
Nuts for stealing bosses.
Yes.
Okay? I've seen way too many Talonflame snipe bosses with absolute impunity with that ability. Rito, please nerf immediately. I don't like it at all. I want to go back to pretending Talonflame doesn't exist.
Okay, I'm
tired of having my bosses sniped.
It is called Fly. It's level 7.
Fly.
The upgrade is it now displaces opponents on top of all the damage it deals.
Okay, good to know.
So Fly got some nice math too at 27.9% damage increase.
So speaking of Pokemon that got buffed, and junglers, and Mockery's note up there about Absol. I don't know how anyone can play any jungler that isn't Absol, because Absol's damage is absurd. Like,
I played
absurd.
Absol, and I walked up to a jungle camp, and I hit it, and I was like, wait, this is dead. I was like, why does this guy hit so hard?
Oh, no. Is this true? I should be playing Absol.
Absol just appears in a team fight, and the entire backline just disappears. I can be one kill comboed, or you know what I mean? Like whatever buttons Absol presses with the purple slash marks, I don't know what's going on there, but Absol blinks in, and then I'm done. I'm knocked out completely. And then he blinks out and he's gone. He's like Gengar was at release, right?
So we got
Absol now.
Psycho Cut is the name of the ability. Throw psychic blades at an opponent, increasing the damage of your next 3 attacks.
And you already hit hard.
Yeah.
It's out of control. If you were a Gengar main and you felt those nerfs and you feel sad, pick up Absol. Absol's new Gengar. It's scary. It's frightening. We went against the same Absol, I think 2 or 3 times in a row, and our only answer to it was to have Haloran play Slowbro and just hit it with the confusion or whatever and hold it in the air to just keep it away from us, because otherwise Mockery and I in the back were just toast.
Yeah, the telekinesis. He's like, I'm gonna hold this guy in place, and we're gonna delete Absol before it becomes a problem.
Before he deletes us, that was the only thing we could do, is just like, somebody has to lock this terrible creature down, because if Absol gets loose in the back line, there's no recovery from that.
He's also got those invincibility frames, or not existing frames, when he does the Midnight Slash, his ultimate.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about the different changes here, and with Eldegoss, Kyberry's like, it doesn't matter that much. With Cinderace, I was kind of the same thing. It doesn't matter that much. But there is one change that I felt mattered a lot. This has been the highlight of the patch for me. Venusaur, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. How's
And I'm
that
not
doing?
just saying that because I got all these Bulbasaurs either. Okay, Venusaur feels so good after the changes. So one big thing they did is they buffed his Sludge Bomb a lot. And I actually looked at a post that said that when you hit someone with Sludge Bomb, you take away about 3/4 of their special defense. You just snatch it all up and it's gone. And for perspective, in the post I was reading about this, apparently hitting a Snorlax with Sludge Bomb causes it to take more damage, like its defenses are lowered, than a Pikachu with nothing on it. Like, you just decimate their defenses. And not only that, Sludge Bomb has a slow on it as well. So you take away a bunch of special defense, and you add a slow to the mix. And what does that set them up for? A huge Solar Beam. You just absolutely shred people. I'm talking, I go out here, I press 2 buttons, people are walking away at like 40% HP after that. And then you know what? I've got them back in a few seconds, and if you didn't leave, you're dead. This character went from feeling really bad and like, why play Venusaur when you've got all these other characters, to like, oh my god, I'm shredding people. And
It feels so good on like
so much fun.
a point fight too, where everybody is kind of clumped up in an area because they're trying to do something, like defend a turn in or fight at like Dreadnought or Zapdos, because they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave the area and give you Dreadnought. But when you put the Sludge Bomb down, like they don't want to stand in it either. So it's really great point control. I really have like seeing a Venusaur on my team for like the Dreadnought fights bottom.
Interesting.
Yeah, just when everybody clumps in those hallways, it's like, oh, I can Solar Beam 4 people? Cool. Say goodbye to your health bars.
Of all the sort of draft things that are going on outside of making sure you don't overstack the jungle, special attack and seeing who brings how much spell damage, as it were, to the fight is kind of one of the better things you can do in a blind draft scenario like this.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't know who's going to be on the enemy team. And I feel like a real draft mode, not blind draft, would be so interesting, seeing how people try to choose to counterplay some things.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see if there's going to be any kind of evolution in terms of ranked. I do know that draft modes tend to really slow things down.
Yeah.
And Pokemon Unite is a game about just cranking out the game super fast. You can surrender after 5 minutes. The longest a game is going to be is 10 minutes. If that's too long for you, there's a mode where the games are 5 minutes. So I think there's potential there. Like we saw Heroes of the Storm, they slowly grew their draft mode for ranked over the years. It started out with no bans, and now we're up to 3 bans per team. There's been an evolution in there. And I don't know if we'll see that in Unite. I kind of hope there's going to be a draft phase, but I kind of get it. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of get the sort of convenience and speed that they're going for now. Although I will say, Kyle was talking about, super quick games, maybe you're not tilted as much. On the flip side, oh man, you can lose points so fast in this game. 30 minutes can pass and you can be 0-3, and that's no good.
I didn't think about that aspect. Instead of losing one really, really big game, you've now lost 3 games, and you're competing at a level where you don't get sweet bot calm down moments. So.
I wish for a draft thing to give us no mirror matches, right? I don't like mirror matches.
Snipe the Eldegoss.
Not just so I can snipe the Eldegoss. There's 2 reasons. One, just aesthetically, I think it's kind of lame to have the same Pokemon on each team. But also, visual like clarity for abilities gets really hard when you have the same Pokemon. There's not a lot of difference between your friendly ability and your enemy ability. Greninja is the one that sticks out to me. If it's an enemy Greninja and a friendly Greninja, that giant stupid ninja star he puts on the ground looks exactly the same. There's like a tiny red ring around the enemy one, but you can't really tell. Same with like Lucario, his bone he puts on the ground. You don't know if it's the enemy bone or the friendly bone. Whose bone is this?
Whose bone?
And it really matters, because if it's a friendly bone, I want to play close to it so he can blink back to me if I'm getting dove on. If it's an enemy bone, I don't want to be anywhere near that bone. But I don't know whose bone this is when there's 2 Lucarios. So like,
yeah, I don't
like that.
I remember right when Ring of Frost came out in World of Warcraft, and these mages would put these giant rings on the ground that would freeze you when you touch them. And you really needed to know, hey, is this my ally's Ring of Frost that isn't going to stun me for like 8 seconds? Or is this an enemy Ring of Frost? that is. And then they eventually made it so, if I remember correctly, it's been years since I've played this game. They made those rings red on the ground if they were enemy rings. And so I think we could really do, as long as we have those mirror matchups that are super common, and I imagine they're always going to be a thing in normal modes, that could really necessitate some greater graphical differences based on which team you're playing with.
Yeah, some moves are better than others. I found, like when there's an enemy Eldegoss, the spore is like red for the enemy spore, and my spore is green, and that's pretty easy. But with like the bone or like Greninja's Unite ability with the big star, I cannot tell those apart at a glance. Like they're very similar, so it's kind of hit or miss which matches are easier to differentiate, but it shouldn't be. So if they're not able to make them very visually distinct, I would just prefer that we just have mirror matches, because I don't like that.
I get you.
We need more Pokemon though too. We only have 21 Pokemon, so it's too early to really be thinking about that. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, it's not being on controller. There's not as much camera adjusting I'm doing either. I'm learning to look ahead a little bit and watch the mini map. But when I see two bouncy feet heading towards me, my brain goes, "Here comes friends." Maybe I'm just positive like that, but I assume any feet bouncing from the top screen are about to be incoming allies.
I've had an embarrassing amount of those moments where I see some feet at the edge of the screen and I'm just like, oh no, I'm getting ganked out, I'm so scared, and I run away, and then it's an ally, or the vice versa, where I'm like, friends here to join at the team fight, and then oh no, I'm in the middle of 4 people. So it's, at the end of the day, it's my fault, you know what I mean? I need to check the map, I need to be more aware of what's around me. Even the targeting circle on the right side of the screen, I think I talked about it in episode 1, the targeting circle does act as an indicator for who is in your vision on the enemy team right now, even if they're not directly on your screen. So you can be aware of those things. It's just its own skill set. Awareness is a skill that needs to be practiced.
The final kind of thing I noticed about the balance here, actually, no, I think I've got 2, because Wigglytuff was everywhere all of a sudden.
Oh no.
That slap, that lockdown. Ain't nobody doing any roly business. It's all singing, and it gets intense.
You cannot change my mind. Wigglytuff is not a support. Wigglytuff is an all-arounder. Wigglytuff is just a pink version of Machamp. Their kits are very similar. Their play style is very similar. Wigglytuff is just pink Machamp, and Machamp is a beast, and so is Wigglytuff.
Yeah. I don't want her getting anywhere near me. The Snorlax Wigglytuff front lines are just instant knockout. It's been rough. I kind of want to do it. I kind of want to be there. I'm budgeting. And perhaps it's going to be Wigglytuff.
I just know that Wigglytuff, in the first balance patch that we had, just had their defensive stats just cranked up to a ridiculous amount. So that makes Wigglytuff just so tanky. They just walk through your team just singing. And if you make the mistake of attacking them while they're singing, they'll pull you in with their infatuation passive and get the guaranteed stun on you. So it's... Yeah, I found that in general, this game, it is as in every other MOBA, so it's really nothing surprising, but matchup knowledge and knowing exactly what abilities the other guy has and exactly how they work is supreme in making it through these fights. Because if you just sort of play every fight the same way, you're going to end up getting one shot a lot in this game, I've found. But once I started to realize, oh, okay, if that Wigglytuff, they've got that infatuation, I can't hit them while they're singing or else I'm gonna get pulled in. Once I started playing around that, she didn't become as threatening, but maybe I'm just saying that as a Cinderace who has the luxury of
running away, from that terrible thing. That terrible pink creature gets near you.
Let's take a moment on that, though, because there are so many passives, and this one is very important. Cute Charm. When you attack at close range, the attacker becomes infatuated with you for a short time, causing it to walk towards you against its will.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
That is nutty for the chase. You cannot let Wigglytuff get anywhere near you, or else she will pull you in. They will hit you with the sing, and you went from a situation where you seemed like you were fine to, oh no, I'm CC'd forever.
And then you're going to get quadruple slapped and have the teeth slapped out of your face. Like, you don't want that.
Poor
Looney Tunes style.
It's The sound effect. That is probably the most tilting thing in this game, is being like beat up by a Wigglytuff, because the slap is such just like a Looney Tunes sound.
It does kind of
Can't.
ring above all other sounds too, like cancels others with its dominance in the area. But poor Charizard, I think he received a lot of text, and in these advanced patch notes, there's even more text, and I don't think he's really bringing it.
I've seen some good Charizard. He's definitely more late game. His early game's not great. I see more of him than we did. I don't know, maybe he's just so mediocre that it's hard to talk about him, right? He's so just middle of the road. Not a lot of people play him. When they do, he's not super impactful. I've had some good ones. His Unite move seems good, but I don't know. Poor Charizard.
Yeah. I'm always willing to try a character that can attack while moving. You know, anybody that's knows me in particular knows I'm all about Tracer. I'm all about not having to sit there and mash buttons or whatever. Just being able to attack while moving feels so nice for everything that enables, the kiting, the chasing. So I don't own this character yet, but I definitely want to give them a shot. You know, it's saving up my gold. I'm sitting on like 14K, which is enough to buy any one character that I want. And I'm just paralyzed over, you know, choosing the exact correct answer.
That's the fun of it, though. Like that's when you're doing the budgeting, laying out all your Pokemon cards, building your deck. You know, it's that same feeling of like, ooh, because like I really want that Cramorant. Like I just think turrets are awesome, and becoming one is so cool. But I see that Wigglytuff just being a jerk out there, and I kind of want to be that jerk too. Let's talk a little.
The second I buy them, they're gonna get nerfed.
Perhaps, right? We don't really know the cadence of the balance patches, but it is really impressive that we got a balance patch that was this deep and this mathematically interesting so soon after release. I know a lot of people are now kind of sitting there. Okay, so what are you gonna do with the map now? Can you show us your willingness to adjust your game's functionality, and we'll see what happens there. But we did get some rundowns this week about what the score message means. This is your we're really struggling, we're behind, close battle, huge lead. And the numbers are pretty tame. But we also now know what time you're going to get these various messages, and it is based on game time, not necessarily how ahead or behind you might be at that time.
And so I looked at this, and just like you said, the numbers are so tame. So first of all, you get notified at 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute. So 4 times, all in the latter half of the game. And what I just think is so crazy is, you know, that we have a huge lead or we're really struggling. These only indicate 100-point differential. And
that's nothing that late in the game. That's one turn in that late in the game. What the heck?
100 points is nothing when you've got points being doubled. You've got instant turn-ins off Zapdos. You've got ample opportunity to backdoor, especially if you've got a score shield. So these messages, you can go instantly from we have a huge lead to tied in 1 turn-in. And a lot of times teams are going to get 2 turn-ins off Zapdos. So I really think that this message, it can give you a clue about how you should be shot calling. So I think, you know, for example, if you're really struggling, that probably means you need to think about making a Zapdos play, maybe backdoors. And if you've got a huge lead or even like a strong lead, like a lead, you know, we're in the lead. That's being 30 to 99 points ahead. In those situations, you definitely want to focus more on just stopping the enemy team from taking Zapdos and stopping them from turning in. But these messages shouldn't be hugely discouraging or even encouraging. They merely should inform your shot calling while knowing that, hey, this message doesn't really necessarily indicate a huge difference. So you still got to be on your toes.
The points, it's not that the points in the early game don't matter, but they also don't matter, right? Because a good Zapdos play can change the entire game. So, like, I almost understand why they don't have a scoreboard in the early game, because, like, who cares? Because if you can do that, like, there needs to be, people need to wrap their brains around how much the game can change in the last 2 minutes. Like, anybody who wants to surrender before the last 2 minutes, like, the game can change so hugely. Like, don't give up, it doesn't matter if we're really struggling. It doesn't matter if we have a huge lead either, because that all can change very, very quickly if you misplay at Zapdos.
Let's be honest, Zapdos is the golden snitch.
Yeah, Zapdos is like the main objective of the entire game, right? Even the bosses, top and bottom, like Dreadnought and Rotom, they are helpful to get, like, I think you said this actually last week, right? That whole 8-minute early game is to get you into a position to play the last 2 minutes of the game. You want to be in a better position. You want to have better footing. You want to have higher levels getting into that Zapdos situation so that you win Zapdos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to win Zapdos, and if you're ahead, winning Zapdos just means they don't take it.
Right, just that's how you don't lose, because if you just let them have Zapdos and turn in a bunch, that's how you lose.
Yes, I love specifically the phrasing of "don't lose" because that is so huge in MOBAs. Is one of the hardest things for gamers to do in MOBAs is when they've got a lead to just hold it and just to sit on it. You don't got to do anything crazy when you're really far ahead in this game. And to an extent, that does mean that the game can turn a little bit into sitting around and waiting. As is the case in any MOBA, you know, they're map oriented. They're heavily based around vision control and controlling different approach angles and areas of interest. And if you're doing your due diligence and all you need to do is prevent the other guy from taking them, then that means you're going to have a decent bit of standing around. But yeah, I absolutely think that the entire game is just setting up to have a good Zapdos play, because that is what is going to decide everything.
We got debated, sucked into a false sense of security by that huge lead in one of our games last night, and we started memeing and fighting top over nothing for no reason. And then it was right before Zapdos. We even said, "Oh, guys, we shouldn't be fighting. Zapdos is in 15 seconds," and we're like, because we were winning, and felt really good. And then we wiped right before Zapdos, and they got Zapdos, and we lost the game. And that's like our fault. That's not a problem with Zapdos. That we knew that we were acting fools, and we got punished for that. Like that's what happens. So don't let that, you have a huge lead, suck you into making mistakes, suck you into a false sense of security, because it's not hard to come back from that.
I do think it's interesting, though, that the destruction of the turn-ins limits the speed zones, gives that map control to the enemy team, gives you more map control because you can get out on the field a little faster with your big jump. Having that early lead of it saying, we're in the lead, XP and map control is what you really have, not victory.
Right. Don't let it make you think that you are invincible.
I think
you're invincible.
It's very rare to give up Zapdos and still win. I think I've only had it happen like once or twice so far, where they got Zapdos and we still managed to win. And at that point, I think that the post-Zapdos meta is actually something that I've been finding really like super interesting. What do you do after Zapdos has been taken? Because it's not like, as much as I say, okay, everything's about Zapdos, it's the golden snitch, there's still stuff to do after. You cannot interrupt enemies from turning in that have a Zapdos buff, but you sure can stop them on the way there. You can kill them, knock them out, you can knock them out before they go to your goal zones. You can CC them out of the place. Snorlax is great for this, pushing people off of the points with their block, but that block can be avoided by Unstoppable. We've had situations where, Snorlax is trying to block people off the goals, block people out of Zapdos, and Machamp says, I'm unstoppable, I don't care, and just runs right through. Snorlax is a pretty similar situation, holding people in place just long enough for those turn-ins not to go in. And even last night, there was a really interesting call made by Haloran that I loved, that actually secured us the win. The enemy team got Zapdos, and Haloran called for those of us with points to just go turn in at the enemy base rather than all defending our own base. Because hey, we weren't going to stop them anyway, and the best shot that we had at that point was to get our own points in. And we ended up winning by like 30 or something like that. To where
it was close, but it was enough. Yeah, we had already had a lead, and then we lost Zapdos. But since we had points to work with, we just ran. Just go.
Yep, we said we're gonna backdoor anyway. You got Zapdos, cool. That doesn't mean this game is 100% over, and we just barely managed to get it out due to a smart backdoor play. So I think post Zapdos, your two main concerns are either, assuming you're on the defending side against a successfully taken Zapdos, you're either trying to stop people from getting to that turn-in, or you're trying to go for backdoors yourself. And there's still a lot of stuff you can do to sort of sway the score right at the very end there, especially with those double point turn-ins.
Even then, it's not the core destruction or the main base destruction we see in other MOBAs. So even when I know we've lost horribly, I'm still sitting there being like, but what's the score screen gonna say about it? And it's an interesting psychological factor that we all kind of, even if we know we got owned, are all sitting there and being like, maybe. I'm willing to entertain the possibility that, we maybe won that game. I even had a game where I was like, oh, we have that, easy money. And then I look at the score, us 502, them 503. And I'm just like, because that's not the sort of minute difference you can track in the middle of the game, unless you're sitting there adding up everybody's scores as they turn in and keeping a mental tally in your head, which no one does. But and I do think that's possible to an extent. Like, I think that could be kind of interesting for like the esports side of things, to keep a running tally from a spectator position. Like, to just have someone whose job is to sit there and tally up everybody's points scored and add them together so that you can see that in real time while spectating a tournament. But there is that element of just, at the end of every game, you're just sort of sitting there wide-eyed like, did we do it? And I honestly don't have a huge problem with the score point system. This is basically what I'm getting at. I do think it's interesting. I kind of get it. You don't want someone to just sort of like turn off their phone. They're like, oh, we're down 200 points. Whatever, I'm done. And just turn off their phone screen and just put it back in their pocket. That's so much easier to do than walking away from a desktop, So I somewhat get it. That's an interesting perspective on it. The ease of walking away while mobile.
Yeah.
Is that much?
It's like hanging up on a flip phone, right? It's like you hang up on a flip phone and it's this very dramatic process of like, you know what? No, screw this. And you just,
I wonder. Did people during flip phone eras hang up aggressively more?
Whereas it's, in a touchscreen, it's beep, and that's it.
Yeah, and you just throw the phone across the room.
Exactly.
That gets you the same. That gets you the same emotion. Just yeet.
But you give it that kind of spin, so it's going to slide on the carpet and it'll be okay where it ends up.
Yeah.
The couch bounce, because you practice. You're like, all right, I'm done with that, and bounce onto the couch, but it'll be okay. It's not going to bounce on the floor. We now know there's a divide in the type of attacks that Pokemon perform. Some are attackers and some are special attackers. That's a big old list, but this does affect your items that you might want to equip if you plan to do a lot of basic attacking.
Yeah, so your auto attackers versus your spell damagers, your AAers versus your mages. I think most games, not even MOBAs, have this kind of split with where your damage is coming from. Is it coming from ability power? Is it coming from basic attack power?
But this is but this is like your basic attack is tied to this type of power. So if you're Eldegoss,
fully spell.
Right. So but it's an interesting split too, because it's still labeled as an auto attack. So if you lower special defense, you do not increase your auto attack damage. However, running a special attack item will increase your basic attack damage.
Okay, I was under the impression with the chart that I had seen that everyone's basic attacks were physical, and on special attackers, everything but the basic attack scaled off physical, but I'm not 100% anymore after you saying this. I'd have to see it.
That's true. And you being, kind of on top of the mastery thing, I'm curious about this now as well. So maybe we should put a kind of question mark in this.
I had heard the same thing that Kyle is saying. Like Ninetales is an example. Ninetales is basic attack scale off of special.
Okay.
She's like purely a mage. Everything is ice power. Even the basic attacks are ice power. They're not physical.
Okay.
That's how I had it explained to me, but we could all be wrong.
It all takes testing.
Right. So using this theory, it is not affected by lowering enemy special attack defense. So you got that Venusaur and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to destroy all their special defense. Let's stack on special attackers. Doesn't work that way. This is still a basic attack that is not augmented by other things.
Okay. I will say I'm looking at the list of attackers versus special attackers, and there's one name that sticks out to me, and that's Crustle in the attacker column. Because I don't know about y'all, there have not been a lot of Crustles in my game. I think a Crustle is probably one of the harder characters to play right, just from what I can tell, and from a few matches on him. But that little snip, 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 little pop, 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 that 3-hit combo.
X scissor, right? Yeah.
Oh, it shreds.
Yeah,
I'm
it
talking.
hurts.
I've heard about some people picking Crustle, and they just get damage items, and then they just walk up and just snip, snip, snip.
Well,
and
then
they just are out
Crustle's
here shredding me, dude.
Crustle's other ability flips his defense and his attack, right? He loses his defense but gains a bunch of attack.
Oh.
So if you have super high defense and then you hit that, I forget what it's called, but you hit that, so you lose some of your defense but gain a bunch of attack, and then go in with the snip, snip, snip. It's like huge damage. You're more vulnerable, but you'll probably kill everybody anyway.
Yeah, it doubles as a stun, the X scissor, as it goes in. It's just absolutely shredding everybody right there.
I tried to learn Crustle to be my tank pickup if I had to fill, and that's what I was told is how that works. You use the damage buff and then go in with the X scissor. I didn't get any good at it, but that's what I was told to do.
Yeah, the damage buff is called Shell Smash, and it looks like your sort of tiramisu cake back explodes off, and then you have little flames around you.
And then you shred. It's
Snip, snip,
just
snip.
I know there have been too many times where I'm like, he's a tank.
No,
What's
he's
the
a
worst that can
killer.
happen? And then Crustle just snip, 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 and then I'm like, oh, my health bar is gone. Of course, I'll be right on my way back to my base, Mr. Crustle, sir. I'm so sorry for bothering you.
So here we've got an answer from chat, which seems to be the consensus. The third special attack on special attackers here is a special attack, whereas attackers' third attack will only be attack based. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Specifically in regard to Ninetales, that means a very high proportion of your attacks will scale. Assuming that's true, will scale off special attack because Ninetales has Aurora Veil, which places a circle down on the ground, and as long as Ninetales is standing in it, every attack they do is a boosted attack. So therefore it would affect a proportionally high amount of Ninetales autos by building special attack.
So by that nature, I won't read the whole list, but I will read the special attacker side because you may want to look at items that are augmenting special attack on these particular Pokemon. Ninetales, Cramorant, Eldegoss, Gengar, Mr. Mime, Pikachu, Slowbro, Venusaur, and Wigglytuff.
And everybody else is an attacker.
Yep. There's one other sort of tip that went around this week. It's a little odd, but it does seem functional, and I've been using it myself. There's a healing trick called the circle method, where you basically go on the edge of one of the goals, where you'd be healing inside, and you rotate in and out quickly, and doing so will increase your heals by about like 30% speed. So you can heal up faster by going in and out of the goal over and over again.
Yeah, I think the reasoning behind that is when you're standing in the goal, you get like a heal over time, like it ticks, but the tick is pretty slow, but you get your first tick as soon as you enter. So if you enter, exit, enter, and in and out, in and out, in and out, you're getting that first tick faster than if you just stood there and waited.
Yep. You want to have a tight circle right on the edge of the goal zone, dipping in and out.
What I found way more helpful and perhaps useful for this information is that the goals heal different amounts. You can get 200 at your outer goal, but the one behind that gives you 400 a tick. So if you have any sort of movement ability at all, or you're below 50% health on a big character, it's worth walking all the way back and even just standing there, not even doing the circle trick business.
It is worth pointing out that because the healing from these are a flat amount, like we said, it's 200 at the tier 1, 400 at the tier 2. This means that the threshold at which it is worth it to go back to the tier 2 is going to be at a different proportion of your health on different characters with different max health amounts. So on a tank, you might not need to be missing that much health at all for it to be more worth it for you to go all the way back, so to speak. Whereas on a much squishier character, you might need to be missing quite a bit of HP to necessitate going back to your tier 2. But on a lot of characters, if not all of them, there is going to be that threshold where, okay, I'm missing a significant chunk of health. I'm going to dash back to my tier 2 and do the circle method at that one, and then rejoin the fight in lane.
What do you think of going back to base, the teleport, the hearth?
Going back to base is super interesting, and it is magnified in effectiveness after 5 minutes. Because the 5-minute mark, the halfway point in the game, is when the super jump spawns. Your ability to launch pad out of the base in a direction of your choosing, either to one of your tier 2s, to the middle of your jungle, or a little bit in between those. And so it is a much faster rotation around the map to do that. And one thing that I've actually found, I remember this was a play we did a little bit of experimenting on in the middle of one of my games recently. We had taken Dreadnought, so we were all on the bottom side of the map. And then we had sieged their tier 1 goal zone off of that. We got a few points in, and one of my friends said, all right, check this out. I'm going to go back to base and then go up to Rotom, and I want you guys to rotate straight to Rotom from their tier 1. So we're going from the bottom side enemy goal zone across the map up to Rotom, and they were recalling and then going from base. And I think even without a super jump, they beat us by a decent margin of time.
Oh.
So cross map
right?
rotation. Yeah, you've got the flux zone, exactly, from walking in your lane. So even before the super jump, cross map rotations from one boss to another can be faster using that recall. And I think Floatstone especially starts to kick in right there and give some move speed in crossing the map. But once you've got super jumps, it is so easy to recall. Recalling is ridiculously fast in this game. You effectively can just take yourself out of a Zapdos fight for about like 8 seconds or something. You know, go back in base, heal up, super jump back in, and you're already back. So it is a very useful tool that can be used for resetting your health really quickly in the late game or for faster map rotations. And to be honest, it took me like 8 games to even find out that this feature existed on launch day. But it is very, very useful, and I'm starting to learn more about how it can be affected. But those are the 2 big uses in mind for me: rotations and healing in the late game.
That's a great thought. I hadn't thought about the rotational value of getting back in the flux zone or the 5-minute mark. I just know
the rotational value is actually magnified based on how many goal zones you still have out, because the destruction of your goal zones also means the destruction of your flux zones behind them. So backing is going to give you more rotational power out of there if you still have your goal zones up.
this was informative. Let's head into emails here. And actually, we ended up touching on a lot of these this week. We talked a little bit about Zapdos, maybe our hopes of how that might change up, current features we were hoping at, and we talked about the draft. So let's grab Mr. Chia's question. If they introduced Eevee, how would they handle the evolutions?
I think. Oh, go Micah first. No, you go first.
No. I just talked a lot. You go.
All right. Well, I think there'll be weird for the evolution Pokemon, because it's Eevee's name, that they will be non-evolving. Like if they're gonna put Sylveon in the game, it's just gonna be Sylveon. There'll be no Eevee, there'll be no evolving, and it'll just be Sylveon. If they're gonna put Umbreon, Vaporeon, whatever, they're just gonna be there. I don't think there would be a way to balance or make it easy to understand having all of the evolutions as a choice. And like, how do you choose? Is it like talent based? Do you pick at the start of the game? Can you pick during the game? It would be very, in my opinion, like convoluted and difficult to have that happen in a game where you have to like somehow choose which Eevee you're going to get. Is it like items? Like, do you need like, does she have stones and you get to pick a stone? And okay, I used my water stone, so now I'm Vaporeon. Like, I have a whole different suite of abilities. That just seems very overly complex for what kind of game this is. And I would just say, like, if you want Sylveon in the game, Sylveon's a character. It's one of the non-evolving Pokemons, and there you go.
Yeah, Everything you're saying reminds me of the balance nightmare that has been varying in Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah,
over the
right.
years.
Multi-class doesn't work in other MOBAs, and I don't see it working here. And this is the MOBA where the games are faster and there's less information presented up front to you. So adding a very complex character with a lot of choices and a lot of numbers and words and different abilities does not seem like it goes well with the style of MOBA we're playing here. And I just don't see how that would work in an elegant way.
I do like what I'm seeing from 8-Bit Adventures in the chat, where they said, I would think you'd pick the final evolution and they all just share the base EV form. So to me, that's an interesting thought, right?
That could be, yeah. Their baby form is all the same. And then
so my question though is, if we implemented that, does the enemy team know which evolution you picked? If
I'd
I'm over
assume
here,
on the loading screen where we're loading in and we see everybody's Pokemon and card, it would show you which evolution, I would hope.
if it was consistent with how it worked now, but maybe there's a sneaky side of it that you could implement where you just know they have an Eevee. You don't know which one. They already locked in their choice.
Because like if they pick Charizard, it's gonna show Charizard even though they start the game as
I'm
Charmander.
talking about like a break from the norm, a break from the consistency of what we have now. There's definitely, it's kind of some tricky ground to navigate, but I do think there's some interesting stuff that could potentially be done there. It would be a departure from what we've been doing already, but I'm open to the idea.
Right, there's no serious consistency that we only have Pokemon that evolve. We've got Pikachu who doesn't evolve at all. We've got Wigglytuff, who I think was a Moonstone-based evolution, and it's not like you gotta go get a stone off the map anywhere. And there's also like this game has less requirements when it comes to graphical development than a normal MOBA. There's no talking. There's no little face in the corner that basically every single MOBA has, saying voice lines. Those got to be recorded. You got to get a voice actor in there. You got to do lip syncing. You got to then do it for every language that you have the game a part of. Like, how much value, time, effort was that taking up? And is that now free to do something weirder or make a Pokemon that takes more graphics? I was actually a little curious, and I went through Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I was seeing like, wait a minute, are we getting only Pokemon Sword and Shield? Because I know that's a limited roster. Are they grabbing the graphics out of that game and putting them in it? That's not the case, at least from what I found. But some of these characters have been done already in 3D environments, and you don't have to even have them emoting. There's no dances. There's no emotes that they're doing. Like, producing Pokemon at a once every 2-week rate, which is kind of what we're hoping for and possibly seeing, doesn't seem like an impossible idea.
Yeah, I mean, the cadence right now, I know usually in the early life cycle of every MOBA that I've seen, so for Heroes of the Storm, League of Legends, and Dota, the early life cycle has this constant, huge influx of characters. Dota, not so much, because Dota was a community project that's been spanning over the last, like, almost 20 years, closer to 15, I think. But I know at least in League of Legends and HOTS, they produced characters at a much more rapid pace very early on. And then I think even League of Legends has somewhat kept up that cadence. And for right now, I'm kind of expecting, and I don't want to necessarily put a firm commitment of expectations on it, but I'm kind of expecting us to have a high cadence right now, because this is a tiny roster at the moment. We've still got barely over 20 characters, so I wouldn't expect them to slow down for a while, but of course it's all up in the air right now. It's all speculation. We've got data miners saying, oh, these are the next 10 characters and these are all their moves and whatnot. But who's to say if they're right or when these characters will come out?
Having been through multiple games, and I'll point this to you, Kai Berries, which direction would you like them to take? Is it more of a balanced and slow approach, or do you just want them to go on the Pokemon and then figure it out later?
Like, okay, because there's two answers to this question, especially for me. The first is for the health of the game. When the game is new, to keep people invested, to keep people engaged, you want very quick releases at the start, right? Because you get people who play the game, they play it for a week or two, they get bored, and they stop playing. And the way to keep those people playing is have something new for them to try, something new for them to achieve, and like obtain quickly. So when a MOBA especially is brand new, they kind of need to have rapid release of new playable characters just to keep the hype going, keep people talking about it, keep new players playing, because people play games they're invested in, right? So to build that investment, you need something that they want to come back and do. So I think new characters are really important for the early game of a MOBA's release. However, I do prefer somewhat slower releases so that the meta can settle and people can learn to play a character and learn its place in the MOBA before we just keep getting them bam, bam, bam all the time, because then nothing is ever balanced. When you have a new character come out and then you're trying to balance this new character and bug fixes and stuff, and then you have a new character come out 2 weeks later that just introduce a whole new set of balance problems and bugs or interactions, and you don't get time to get those fixed until you have the next new hero. So I don't super enjoy that stage of life. I didn't enjoy it in Heroes of the Storm when we were getting, the 2 heroes a month or whatever. That was crazy. It felt like the game never settled on anything and nothing was ever balanced. But then you kind of have to do that when a game is new. So my theory would be Blastoise is going to be this week on Wednesday. I'll be surprised if they push him off another week. He's official. It's not like that's a rumor or data mine, right? They tweeted about him. We know all about Blastoise officially, and I would personally think he's going to be this week.
Yeah, well, and he's in the training mode. It's like, battle this war turtle, if you will.
Yeah, I get people who are like, oh, don't talk about data mine stuff, and I'm like, so I just want to firmly, like, Blastoise is firmly confirmed.
Yes, but we won't do data mine stuff, but if it's getting this ridiculous, we may bring it up.
Yeah, but I would assume he'll be like this week. It'll be 2 weeks after Gardevoir. That would feel normal for a new MOBA for me to go, because we had the release, and then the next week we had a balance patch and bug fixes, and then the next week we'll have a new hero, and I assume it will keep like that for a while just to keep people hooked.
It's a really interesting and very unique position to be in the mobile release, because the game sits on the edge of an even bigger release.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge influx of players as well. So you probably also want the game to be somewhat established and kind of thriving and chugging on when that release happens, so that when you get all these new players, there's a community for them. They're not starting off a game that feels like barren. You know what I mean?
The old Steam greenlight, if you will.
Because if you think mobile players don't have an attention span, wait, it's mobile players.
Yeah. Well, they're outside. They're experiencing the world. We gotta keep their attention. Mockery, any opinion on that?
Absolutely. So when it comes to phones, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it on the podcast already, but it would not surprise me if the Switch ends up being a less optimal way to play the game in comparison to a phone or a tablet. I know I regularly experience some screen freezing on my Switch, and I'm running the same hardware as everybody else. So I don't know, a lot of other people I ask are also getting some freezes. I know even when we were just talking about Venusaur earlier in the show, Solar Beam has got some wonky auto-targeting. It's like, oh, do you want to hit this random thing in the jungle nowhere near you? And it's like, yeah, let's go. And it just targets away. Even if Sludge Bomb went on something right next to me. And what do you get from a touchscreen? Well, you get the ability to have very precise control over what you're aiming at, because you're just using your fingers directly on where you want to go, rather than introducing another medium like an analog stick or a mouse or whatever. Yeah, sorry, I had a little soda earlier. And so, like, for example, we're talking about Eldegoss earlier, and you've got that pollen puff, whatever it is. That is going to be so much easier to aim on phones. Solar Beam is going to be so much easier to aim on phones. I know even there were these recommended builds, recommended movesets on every character by the #1 ranked player. And they even specifically said for Pikachu that their recommendations differed depending on whether or not you were on Switch or on a phone. And that they opted more for the point-and-click Volt Tackle on a Switch, and the area control, I want to say Thunder, specifically, you mark an area with a circle they said they suspected would be better on a phone. So for me, I think this release is going to be huge because it would not surprise me if, just like I think even Michael Udall is playing League of Legends Wild Rift right now, the mobile League of Legends game. And last time I watched his stream, he was playing on a tablet, which offers still a decently large screen size while offering you a large amount of control over where your abilities are going. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is the way to go in terms of if you're trying to maximize your performance. It would not surprise me at all if we start seeing every all the tryhards, so to speak, the competitive players on some tablets in the very near future.
And before anybody says emulator, play it on BlueStacks, lol. For most tournament settings, for Wild Rift in particular, playing on an emulator is considered cheating and not allowed in tournaments. Obviously, in an online tournament, there's no concrete way for them to know, but you could, if you learn it on an emulator and you do really well and you get invited to a LAN, you're kind of screwed at that point because you can't go to the LAN and play on an emulator. And obviously, if all of your playtime hours were on an emulator, you're not going to have the skills to play on Switch or on tablet or whatever the people there are playing on. So I wouldn't recommend getting comfy playing on an emulator if you plan on ever playing anything in person, because it's cheating.
Yeah,
I like the
highlighted by perhaps, and highlighting our age here. But I remember the number of esports tournaments I've been to where massive delays struck because someone showed up with a keyboard that has that little green circle plug-in thing, and they're like, we can't.
Yeah, it's not allowed.
There's no holes in the back of a computer for this anymore.
Oh. Yeah, no, for a second I was like, what are y'all talking about? And I was like, wait, no, you really are showing your age.
Right,
Okay.
this is pre-USB. USBs didn't exist yet.
Yeah, I love it. Dude, I actually really want one of those just old white rubber dome keyboards that I grew up typing on. Oh, they're so nice. Like one of those old IBM keyboards, if you will. But that's another story. I love what Kyberries is talking about here because that was actually a big thing for me when I was a competitor in Heroes of the Dorm. There was a time where there was a serious shot at me making it to a LAN for Heroes of the Dorm. I never did, unfortunately, but I decided not to use certain software for that reason because, like, for example, I use YOLO Mouse in my streams. It replaces my cursor, but I knew I could never use that at a LAN. I couldn't show up to a LAN and be like, hey guys, can I install my own custom cursor software to replace everything and like sit here and set it up at the LAN? So definitely, like, if that is in your future, if that's something you ever think you're going to do, you have to try and familiarize yourself as much as possible with the constraints of the LAN. You have to play within what you can reasonably expect to play at a LAN, because once you get too comfy with something that's not allowed, you're going to be out of your element when you're up there.
Dude, what if Nintendo requires people to play on Switch? I don't know that they would, but what if they did? Like, what if Nintendo ran the LAN event so they wanted only Nintendo hardware? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that does make sense. And it is harder. I don't know how hard, but I know it is harder to specifically manipulate a post-launch Switch. I know those launch Switches are valued for their ability to be sort of tinkered with, but there's definitely a lot there. Whereas I could definitely see, just right off the top of my head, I could see some potential for fiddling around with
I'm trying to remember what game it was. Maybe it was Vainglory. I don't remember 100%, but I was at a PAX. I think it was PAX West that had a tournament, and it's played on phones, and you actually couldn't even use your own phone. You were issued a phone with the game on it to play on, to make sure nobody had any freaky deaky third-party software or anything like that, because like Android phones can be manipulated a little bit more. So when you went to play, they handed you a phone, and that's what you got to play on. So these things will probably become things once the mobile release happens. What the meta is might be determined by what's allowed to be played on at LAN.
That would be
we don't know
fascinating.
Yet. Yeah.
I would love that personally, because I'm one of those persons that starts up a game and like if the graphics just aren't right, but my computer's not powerful enough to go max. I'm like sitting there for hours being like, can I do it? No shadows down. Okay. Oh, Tress effects. Can I turn? No. it would be so calming to me if they're like, everyone has to play on Switches for tournament, because I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Even though I might have a less superior experience, my screen sometimes, farts off for a moment. At least I know I'm playing at the approved level.
Yeah, that's definitely. I just wonder that will come up in some capacity when this gets a little bigger. If esports get a little bigger, this all is going to come out at some point, and it's going to be really interesting what the meta becomes.
Yeah, we're in this sort of interesting state right now. I think one of the first things I said on this podcast was, wait and see. We got to wait and see. And to an extent, we have waited and we have seen what the game is like in terms of how it runs and how it functions and how the ladder is and the monetization, the items. But that's only a small chunk of things in the greater scheme. There's still a lot to come. It is super up in the air. How much inspiration are they going to take from other scenes? How much are they going to do their own Nintendo brand of esports that we all
boy.
love? It is still very much in a state of wait and see, and to an extent we always will be. But there's so many questions, and a lot of this is speculation. But I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, as part of that wait and see, we'll see you all next episode, because we're going to end it there. We covered a lot today. Thank you for joining us. Let's shoot it over to Kai Berries. Tell us where people can find you.
Hello, it is I, Kai Berries. You can find me everywhere on the internet at Kai Berries, Kiye. I'm told it's hard to spell berries. I do have a YouTube that's just for Pokemon Unite content. That's Kai Berries Pokemon Unite. I have a different YouTube for Heroes of the Storm as well. Twitch, Twitter, I don't know, TikTok. I'm all over the place at Kai Berries. Come hop in and say hello.
Mockery?
Of course. I'm Mockery TV. Is wherever you want to find me. Mockery TV. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Those are the big ones for me personally. That's MOCHRIE TV. Easy enough.
And I'm Kyle Ferguson. You can find everything I do over at kyleferguson.com, 2 S's in Ferguson, twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson. But mainly that website is what you're looking for here, because that's where you'll find a link to the show notes, as well as the RSS feed of this podcast. Thank you again to everybody who has given us 5-star reviews across this show. We'll make sure next time to do a nice little rundown, and thank you all in particular. But that has been so helpful. The show has grown so much over the last 4 weeks, and it's been awesome to see. But it's time to say goodbye. Thank you all for watching, and take care.
Thank you, y'all.
Bye.